For one of this week's assignments, you're going to make a multiplication table which will go from 0 times 0 to 12 times 12 using NetLogo. So the first thing we're going to need to do is get to NetLogo. Now, I know some of you have computers that you have NetLogo downloaded, and that's great. I will be using NetLogo Web based because I know the majority of you will probably be using that. There's several ways of finding the NetLogo Web base. If you just type in NetLogo, NetLogo, into Google and do the search, there'll be this NetLogo homepage. And also, if you just did NetLogo Web, you'll end up seeing this site here, which is NetLogo Web. I'm just going to go ahead and click on this one. And again, if you have a laptop or a desktop or an actual computer, you can download it on your computer. However, if you're on a Chromebook or something that's just a web browser, you will need to use the NetLogo Web. So that's the one I'm going to go to. I'm going to click on that one. And you can see right here, it's up at the top, it's NetLogo Web. Now what's going to happen when you sign in is it will automatically load some random program in the models library. We're not going to do that. We want to start from scratch. So what you will need to do is up here in the top right corner, you're going to click on New, and then we need to click on the OK dialog box. And that will bring in a brand new program. There's nothing on here at all, and you can see the basic layout. You have this blank interactive area right now, and there's nothing over here. And we have the command center, which is used for printing out information, and we won't use that for this program. We have the code center here, which we'll end up using for writing our code in. And if you're on the NetLogo computer version, instead of having these tabs here, they will be up in the top left hand corner across the top, and it will say interface, info, and code. And the other difference you will deal with is if you're using the NetLogo Web, in order to make changes here to our interface, we need to lock and unlock this little padlock icon. So clicking on that unlocks it, clicking on it locks it back. And there's going to be a couple things we're going to do. One of them is we're going to adjust our world size here, and we'll end up doing that in a minute. And then the other thing we will need to unlock this for is putting in our setup button. Again, if you're on the downloaded version, you don't have this icon, you just interact with it directly. Alright, so what we're going to end up doing is basically making our own little multiplication table, and we'll go from 0 times 0 to 12 times 12. And normally when we see these, we usually start off with 0 at the top right corner and go down positive numbers this way from 0 to 12, and then up here in the top left hand corner we have 0 and we have 12 going to the right, 0 to 12 going to the right. For this, we're going to end up having 0, 0 being our bottom corner right here, and 0 to 12 going this way, and 0 to 12 going up. So it's going to kind of be a little bit different than what you're looking for. And at the end of this, if you want extra credit points, I'm going to let you make some modifications to this and see if you can have 0 to 12 this way and 0 to 12 this way with the appropriate times, the numbers down here. And I'll talk about that later. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and go down to our code tab, and we're going to type in the word 2 and then setup and hit enter a few times. It doesn't matter if it's 3 or 4 or 5. You don't need to hit it 20 times or 100 times. But this is basically going to be our one procedure that creates our times table. So 2 lets NetLogo know that there's some kind of procedure coming up. The name of this procedure, we're calling it setup. Again, we could call it macaroni and cheese, we could call it dog, but by tradition and computer programming, you try to name procedures what they do. And this procedure is going to set up our NetLogo world. And by tradition, they use the word setup. Now, for the web version, you have to hit this recompile code so that the browser knows to update and add this code to its current code. So I'm going to hit that. I clicked on that, and now it's added this. And there shouldn't be any issues there, and that looks good. Alright, our next thing we're going to do is we're going to go up here and to our interactive lock, and we're going to click this so the padlock shows unlocked. Again, if you're using the actual NetLogo program, you just have to go to the interface tab, click on that, and then it will bring you to what basically looks like this. One of the things we're going to add here is a button. So what we're going to do is right click. I'm going to put my mouse in this little area here off to the left of our big black square. So I'm going to right click on that, and I'm going to click create button. And again, if you're on a browser, if you're on a Chromebook, anything that's Mac based, you hold down 2 fingers on the pad for right clicking. So you should have this pop up, this little interactive window, and what we want to do is we're going to type in setup spelled exactly the same way we have it listed in our procedure. If it's not exactly the same way it's in our procedure, it won't be able to find it. So if you used all small letters here, then setup needs to be here, because what happens is when you click on setup here, it runs this procedure down here, starting with the word setup. So it has to match exactly. Alright, the other thing we're going to do is we're going to end up changing the size of our world. So I'm going to right click it. I'm going to move my mouse over the big square here. I'm going to click, I right clicked, I'm going to select edit, so I left click there, and I'm going to change these our minimum and maximum x coordinates and our y coordinates. I'm going to make our minimum x coordinate 0 and our maximum 12, and the same for our y. You see that this is minimum py coordinate, so this is on our y axis. I'm going to make that the minimum 0 and then the maximum 12 here. And just to make things a little bit bigger here, because we made this smaller, I'm going to go down to where it says patch sizes. I'm going to make that bigger. So I'm going to make this 30. And click on OK. And now that's changed our size of our world and the size of our patches. Now if you're on the computer-based NetLogo, when you clicked on there, if you at the top there's a button that says settings, so you click on the settings and go to custom and make those adjustments. So I'm gonna, for the web base now, I'm gonna reset my lock here, so now it's locked. So when I click on setup, what this does is it says, oh, I don't know what this means. Oh yes, I do. I come down here and I do whatever's listed here. Now what I'm going to go ahead and do is I'm going to start typing my code. So underneath setup, that second line, line 2, I'm going to do clear dash all, and that does exactly what you think it would do. It clears out this world here. So anything that was there, it gets rid of and makes all the patches, turns them back to black. So to add this code in the web base, I had to hit recompile code. It recompiles my code. When I hit up setup, you're not going to see any change because we haven't added anything or done anything. Now I'm going to go ahead and make something different here. I'm going to go to the end of clear dash all, and again that dash is a minus sign, which is the button on your keyboard next to 0. So clear dash all or clear minus all. And the reason we do this is it makes it one word. When that's connected with the dash, the computer just looks at it as one word. I'm going to go to the end of clear dash all. hit enter a couple times, twice, and then I'm going to say ask, ASK, patches, PATCHES. I'm going to ask the patches to do something. And again, the patches are these little background squares. I'm going to start a square bracket, starting square bracket. That's the one next to the letter P. I'm going to hit enter twice, and I'm going to do an ending square bracket, and that's the one next to the starting square bracket. And in between, I want to move my cursor in between, and I'm going to say set P color white, and you're going to see that I'm going to end up changing that a little bit later, but you'll see what this does. I'm going to hit recompile code here, and now it integrated what we just typed into the program here. So now when I hit setup, it's going to do these steps. It's going to clear all, and it's going to ask all the patches to set their color to white. So when I hit setup, now all of our patches are white. Now then, going to run into some issues here, but we'll talk about that. So red, I'm going to make this red instead. And this is going to be to avoid some other colors. And you can pick whatever color you want, and I'll talk about that in a minute, but you can't pick purple, and I'll explain why later. But if whatever color you pick, if it ends up being in this red letters, that's a color that it recognizes. So for now, if you just follow along, make it red, that'll make it easier. I'm going to recompile code, so I'm adding those changes. I come up here, instead of being white, now it's changing everything to red. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to have my numbers 0 to 12 going this way, and I'm going to add 0 to 12 going this way. So at the end of my ending bracket there, I'm going to hit enter a couple times. Actually, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and say what this does. I went up here in front of the above ask patches. I hit enter one time, so it gives me some space. I'm going to do semicolon, semicolon, which that's the key next to the letter L, semicolon, semicolon, and I'm going to say set all patches to red. Now when the computer looks at this, it doesn't read this. It doesn't read this and say, oh, I need to set my patches to red. What this is I put this in here for my notes, the human notes, so I kind of know what this next block of code does. I'm going to go ahead and compile that. And when I come up here, you can see it doesn't change anything. But what I'm going to do is kind of follow this format so I know what each block or section of code does. And so I can break it up into little paragraphs kind of setting here with my programming. I'm going to go ahead and go to the end of this ending bracket on line 8, hit enter twice. And the next thing I want to do is I'm going to say label, L-A-B-E-L, the x-axis, from 0 to 12. So that way I have a list of numbers from 0 to 12 across there. And what I'm going to do is start off similar. I'm going to say ask, A-S-K, patches, P-A-T-C-H-E-S. If I'm asking the patches to do something, I need to have a kind of a starting and an ending to that, so they know what I'm asking the patches to do and where they're not, and when I'm finished asking them. So here's what I'm going to do. I just want the bottom ones to be labeled 0 through 12. So I'm going to say if, and this will make sense in a minute, I'll explain this once we get it done. If pycore equals 0, and you notice I put parentheses around there, starting parenthesis and ending parenthesis. In NetLogo, I don't actually need these parentheses, but most other computer programming language you'll need some kind of set of parentheses, so it's just a good habit to keep doing that. So if my pycore equals 0, that's my x coordinate, I want to do something. And if I'm telling something to do something, I always got to use these brackets here in NetLogo. And what these brackets do is they let me know if this is true, whatever's in this parentheses, if this is true, then I'm going to do what's in between these two brackets. If this is not true, then I don't do what's in between these two brackets. So there's three things I want it to do. I want to set the P color to white. That way I can kind of see it as different. And then I'm going to set my label on that patch, and for the patches they're just called P label to whatever the PX core value is. And this will should make really good sense in a minute here. And then just so I can see it better, I'm going to set my P label dash color to a color that's easy to see, and I'm going to just say black. Alright, so I'm going to hit recompile, and I'm going to come up here and I'm going to hit setup, and now you can see it's labeled these 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Because what it's done here is come here and said, okay, if my y coordinate equals 0, if that's true, then I'm going to set my patch color to white. I'm going to set the label. I'm going to label that box whatever the PX core is. And what this means is, like this little spot right here, this little square would be 0, 0. And because then this is going to be 1, 0, 2, 0, 3, 0, 4, 0, and so on. So with that in mind, that's how we get this to go from 0 to 12. And looking at that, I don't quite like how I can't see those numbers. So I'm going to go ahead and go to my interactive mode here. I'm going to right click on this, edit it, and I'm going to change this to 25 maybe. Maybe making the patch sizes different will make that a little bit easier to see. And I'm going to lock this back. I'll do setup again. And it's still doing that. Let me see if I can maybe drag this down here. Oh, there we go. Maybe not. We'll see. It's not going to let me do it the way I want to. But it'll be okay-ish for this. Alright, so now then I want my 0 to 12 going this way. And again, all of these boxes right here, these little squares, are going to have, this little square right here is 0, 0. This one will be 0, 1. The next one will be 0, 2. Next one will be 0, 3. 0, 4, 0, 5. So all of them start, their x coordinate all start with 0 for the x coordinate. So we're going to do something very similar to what we did here, but we're going to change this and this right here. Where it says PX core, we're going to end up changing that. Where it says PY core, we're going to change that. Alright, so please pay attention to make sure that, so we say ask patches, so we ask the patches to do this. I'm going to go ahead and get rid of this little blank space. So this is kind of another block of code. So we ask our patches, so everything from this block to this block is what we're asking our patches to do for this. And we're saying if your PY core, your PY coordinate equals 0, then we want to do this. Well, we're going to do the same thing for labeling our y-axis, so things will be very similar with just a few changes. So I'm going to say label the y-axis from 0 to 12. And again, I'm just writing this so you as a human knows what this does. The computer doesn't read that and say, oh, that's what I need to do. It's just so we know what this next block of code does. And very similar to what we have up there, we're going to say ask patches starter brackets. I'm going to hit enter a couple times, and then do our ending square bracket. And then just like we have up there, I'm going to say if, start my parentheses, but this time I'm going to say px core. So if our x coordinate equals 0, what I want to do is this. And so I need to have a start and an end to my list of things I'm asking it to do. So I'm going to say set p color white. Then the next thing I'm going to do is set my p label to my py coordinate value, so that's py core. And then I'm going to set the p label color, the patch label color, that's patch label p label dash color to black. And just to keep things tidy, I'm going to get rid of this little space in between here. Now again, for the web-based version, I got to go up here and hit recompile. So now it's added that change of code, and what I'm expecting now is the way this is white with black letters, sorry, black numbers. I expect this to be from here to here to be white and labels 0 to 12 going this way when I hit setup. Let's see if that happens, and it did. Alright, so I have that going on. And now then, what I'm going to end up doing is I want these to be labeled like 1 times 1. I want to end up having that label. So 1 times 1 in here would be 1, and then for this, like 1 times 2 would be 2, then 1 times 3. So I'm going to end up doing that next. So I'm going to come down here to our code, and I'm going to, for this next block of code, what I want it to do is I'm going to say fill in times table, we'll call it chart, times table chart. Alright, so this is gonna look, this is a little bit different, but we're just about done with what we're working on here. So I'm gonna have to move my little bar down here so you can see what I'm gonna do next. So I'm gonna say ask patches, ask patches, and if I'm asking the patches to do something, I need to have a starting square bracket, hit enter a couple times, and an ending square bracket. And I'm going to ask it a question again, and this is going to be a little bit different. I'm going to say if, start my parentheses, your py coordinate, if your y coordinate, and in computer programming for not equals, like if in math you would see an equal sign with a slash through it, that means like not equal. Like you've probably seen the no smoking signs that has a picture of a little cigarette and it has a red circle with a slash through it. The little slash usually means no, kind of like the sign language for that, but we don't have that on a keyboard. So the people who came up with coding, instead of making everybody change their keyboards to have a not equal sign, they use an exclamation mark and an equal. And again, the exclamation mark is you hit shift and the number 1 there. So if it's not equal to 0 and our py coordinate, so we just abbreviate that as py core, is not equal to 0, I'm going to end my brackets there, hit enter, and here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to end up shifting this down a little bit. I'm going to say, if that's true, we got to put what we want to happen in brackets. So if this is true, meaning the py coordinate and the px coordinate, our y coordinate and our x coordinate isn't equal to 0, what I want to do is I'm going to set my patch label to the px core value times my py core value. And again, just to make it easier to see, I'm going to set my patch label, because by default they're white. So I'm going to set my patch label, my P color, patch, and that stands for my P label to P label color to black. Alright. So I'm going to come up here, hit recompile, and then when I hit setup, I'm expecting all of this to pop up, and it does it automatically, because basically what it's doing, it comes down here and says, so this right here, this coordinate is 1, 1. So what it's done is it's multiplied 1 times 1. That's what we told it to do in the code. And for instance, this right here is 4 and 4. So 4 times 4 is 16. Here our little x and y coordinate would be, this is our 6 would be our x value. Our y value would be 4. So 6 times 4 is 24. And you can see we've made this, and it goes all the way from 1 all the way up to 144, because 144, that's 12 times 12. That's 144. So here's what we're going to end up doing that makes this a little bit more interesting, is we're going to change the color of our patch label. So our patch color. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say set P color, and that stands for patch color. I'm going to set it to whatever our P label value is. And in NetLogo, colors can be defined by numbers. So I'm going to hit recompile, and I'm going to come up here and hit setup. And you can see it changed the colors of our patches here. So all of them have these different colors. And we can kind of start seeing patterns here. This is one of the interesting things about using graphics and computers and stuff like that. Right here you can see all these are black, all these going down are black, and all these end with the number 0 in the ones place. So because this is 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, the same here. Look at these right here. These all end in 0. This is 20, this is 30, this is 40, here's 50, 60. So anything that ends with a 0 is black, and I'm going to show you why. I'm going to bring up NetLogo here. I'm going to bring it to this screen. This is the similar to what you have. This is the desktop version. But I want to show you in this, it's easier to see in the desktop version than it is the browser version. But when I go to color swatches right here, so I went to tools up here, which you don't have in the browser version, and I went to color swatches. And this gives me a list of the colors that are available in NetLogo. And you can see they go by numbers, but you can see right here that anything that ends with a 0 ends up being black. And then when you add a little bit of number, if you add one more to that, it makes it a little lighter. And we have the middle, these values of 5, 15, 25 being whatever the main color is. Like this is shades of brown here. So 35 is brown. If it's less than 35, it's a darker shade of brown. If it's more than 35, but still in the 30 range, it's a lighter shade. And then you can see that anything ends with a 0.9 is white. So anything that ends with a 0 is black. Anything that ends with a 0.9 is white. And we have these different shades in between. So for instance, right here, if we looked at (20, 10, black, black, black), here's a 1, but you see 1's a little bit a little bit darker. Alright, so I'm going to end up switching that off. So we're going to go back to here, and then we're going to end up manipulating these a little bit here. So we're setting our P color to whatever the P label is, but then I'm going to do something else. I'm going to end up saying, okay, I want to know if I end up doing times. So the times on your keyboard is Shift and the number 8, which gives you the asterisk sign. And right here again, this is, I should have said this up here also, but this is Shift 8, the little asterisk, and there's a space on each side of that. So I'm going to multiply this times 0.1. So whatever the value is, so 144 times 0.1, that would change it to 14.4. Just moves the decimal over one spot. So I'm going to go up here, recompile that, and then set up, and you see it kind of gradually shades things here. And then let me see if I multiply things by 0.2. Let's see what that does. So I change that to 0.2, recompile, do setup, and you can see where it goes from being this lighter color of gray. It shifted, the red started over here when we did 0.1, now it's moved it over here. Let's see what happens when we do 0.3. Let's see, make a prediction here. 0.3. So it seems like, if the trend continues, that this red, where it shifts to being red color, should be more over here. We'll see. And oh, I forgot to recompile my code. Let's do that. Yep, and it did. And we started with the green now. So in addition to that, we can multiply it by another number. We can see what happens. So times 2. Remember to hit recompile, and that changes our values. And you'll start seeing some patterns in here if you mess around with the colors, and I'm not going to tell you what those patterns are because we're going to end up talking about those later. But one of the other things is I want to do is give you the extra credit option. So if you're interested in trying to do something interesting with coding, I did 0 to 12 here and 0 to 12 here. Most times tables are 0 to 12 going this way and 0 to 12 going here, with our times table kind of filled in this way. So if you want to try to reset up your code to do that and you get that done, I will give you extra credit. To help you out, there's documentation. If you are using the NetLogo version on a computer, if you go to help up here and then this one that says NetLogo dictionary, there are some things in there that can help you. A couple of things, there's several ways of changing the layout there, or the axis, your X and Y axis. You can use the absolute value sign, which we've all dealt with before, hopefully, if you've done your assignments from in the previous semester. So the absolute value, and this is listed in alphabetical order. So an absolute value in here is ABS. So the absolute value is, again, it gets rid of the negative sign. So here's that, show the absolute value of -7. That would be 7. And if you're interested in doing this, I'll be happy to help you out during the tutoring times or in class. The other thing, remember that if you multiply a negative by a negative, that gives you a positive. So -1 times -12 would be +12. So there's ways of making positive numbers negative and negative numbers positive. And I'm hoping that you'll kind of see some patterns here. Hopefully you will, especially if you manipulate this line right here where you're changing your code value, your code color. So set P color to this. Yep. Alright, so now I'm back on the computer version of NetLogo, and you can see that it has everything is with 0 is black. The closer the number is to 0, the darker it gets, the further away it is from 0, or the closer it is to 0.9, I should say, it ends up being a lighter color. So you can see, like, for instance, let's find a number here. So we see that 18 is a lighter shade of red than 14 is. 14 is a little darker. So again, go ahead and spend some time manipulating this around, see what patterns these colors are showing you. One thing I will point out is you can see, like, there's only like 132 and 132. Those only appear twice here, so they're only distinct color. Some of these are harder to see. For instance, 7 times 7 is 49, and you can see that that's hard to see right there because it's pretty close to being 0.9, so it's a lighter shade of green. It's almost so light it almost looks white. So yellow. Okay. So again, if you need some help with this, I have tutoring available I'll help you with, and this assignment will be due at the end of the week. Thank you very much for watching.